host of the Faulkner Focus, Fox News, Harris Faulkner. Harris, just what does today, what does it mean to you?
Well, you know, I do look at the past, and Charles, first of all, thank you for having me on this particular day. It's also the first anniversary of the Faulkner Focus. We started on MLK Day last year, so I feel doubly blessed to talk about the past and the future with you. You know, when we look back, MLK Day means this to me, that all things are possible when we work together, and that measuring change is a part of how to go forward. And Brookings has an interesting look at this. It really does encompass looking at the journey and the change and taking it all in. And not forgetting that, as you mentioned, that sometimes the journey might have been tough. It was chippy. It was all the trouble and all of the pain and the heartache that history books tell us and that our families help us remember. And like you said, in your family, what a beautiful tradition to read those speeches before you and your wife are empty nesters. But really, what progress have we made? And I did want to point to one thing from this Brookings article, because I do think it's important. So in 1940, 60% of employed black women worked as domestic servants. Today, the number is down to 2.2%, while 60% hold white-collar jobs. In 1958, all of this, of course, before you and I were born, 44% of whites said that they would move if a black family moved next door to them. Today, that figure is 1%. In 1964, the year before I was born, the year that the Great Civil Rights Act was passed, only 18% of whites claimed to have a friend who was black. Today, 86% say they do. 87% of blacks assert they have white friends. And what all that tells me is that everything is possible. Because in my lifetime, my father served in the military, and you're a former military personnel member too, Charles. And he talked to people about why he loved this country so much, because of its potential. Yeah. And those signs were still up all across the South. I was born in the South. You know, where we could drink, where we could go to the bathroom. I was just a toddler. And my parents would remind me that in my lifetime, in your lifetime, look how much change has come about. Now, you and I are handed the mantle now for more change. And I don't just mean as people of color, I mean as people in the media. For the platforms that we have, it is inherent upon us and incumbent upon us to remind people that diversity is more than the color of our skin and the texture of our hair. It is our diversity of thought, perspective, origin of culture, where our people came from in this country. Maybe they're from the North, maybe they're from the South. I mean, all of that matters. And when you hear certain politicians say the black community, who do they mean? There are 47 plus million of us. Yeah. There are many communities of color, and that's part of the change and success that we bring about going forward. You know, Harris, so I'm really excited on this day. I'm very optimistic.
Yeah, so am I. And I was just going to say that those are amazing, beautiful words. And my father was also, he fought in Vietnam. He was this great pride to be a U.S. vet. And you know, his funeral with the 21-gun salute and the folding of the flag was probably the most powerful thing I've ever witnessed. And it just tells you just how great this country is, which makes me wonder, today a lot of people in the media and some others are saying we shouldn't be celebrating it because the Senate won't pass or change this filibuster. And I just want to let folks out there understand what the real deal is here. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 was extended in 2006 for 25 years. Now, the Supreme Court deemed that part of it, the part that assumed that those 9 southern states were inherently racist, was antiquated. That was the Shelby decision. It was in 2013. Remember, President Obama was in office, so they could have done something about it now. Joe Biden's in the Oval Office now. This, of course, after black voters saved his candidacy. And, you know, I just think it's nuts to say not to sell. As hard as we fought for the day, to say to make it a political pawn today. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, playing politics is what politicians do. And that's really unfortunate. And they played politics during the time of all of those riots after the death of George Floyd as well. You know, picking up the mantle of messaging that was messy from the streets. I mean, half those people had no idea the insurgents among them that were going to commit crimes all night long after they took their strollers back home and their signs talking about justice and all of their goals. And their whole messaging was taken over with hate and rioting. And we don't even talk about that. And we should. We should talk about that. We should talk about the crimes that were committed among all that peaceful protesting. Why? Because this country was based on the ability to get that messaging out there for whatever your cause was. I mean, MLK didn't, he wasn't up at 3 o'clock in the morning protesting. That wasn't his jam. He wanted people to see the message. And so, things got morphed, and we're not honest about all of that.
Yeah.
We're not honest about our current journey, and I don't know how we go forth without it. But in this country, we have an opportunity to shore each other up, to create more space for ourselves by taking up every space. I mean, I don't know if people ask you this, but people ask me this on the street, at airports, everything. Black people, Hispanics, whatever, they come up and they say, how can you work at Fox? And I'm like, well, I'm a journalist, and my father told me that we should be, as diverse Americans, every space, every place there is in America that anybody could occupy.
Right.
That's true progress.
No,
I love working at Fox. I mean, of course I reach segments of the population with this black face that I might not reach anyplace else. I don't know, but here I am. I am planted, and I'm trying to nourish and grow this garden where I'm planted. That's how I was raised. And I know that you were raised similarly, because you're like one of the most positive people I know, Charles.
Thank you. Thank you. By the way, I think you had someone on your show today that had something really interesting, and I wanted you to share it with us in the audience because it gets back to what you were just saying.
So we had a tough conversation today on voter ID. It was part of the power panel on the Faulkner Focus. We had a debate between my GOP guest, the founder of GoPac, David Avella, and Crystal Knight, my Democrat guest. And when it got to the point of David saying, we could come together on voter ID, 80% of Americans want it, she said, no, we can't. Here it is.
We're not united on voter ID, David, because if I'm a student attending a state university and I'm issued a student ID, I cannot go and vote. There are, states in this country that will not accept my voter ID bill and so, or my student ID. And so when we talk about voter ID, that's very broad.
Can you go get a different ID that they do accept?
If that's a possibility.
The answer to that question is yes.
These conversations are tough, Harris, and there's a lot. You said earlier, politicians and the political class, it seems like they have their own agenda. I will say this, that I came in with this song from Stevie Wonder.
I love it.
There's a part in there that says, we know the key to unity of all people is in the dream that you had so long ago that lives in the heart of all of people that believe in unity. We'll make the dream become a reality. I know we will, because our hearts tell us so. Harris Faulkner,
I love that song.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Appreciate you as a friend, a colleague, and someone I look up to. And folks, of course, make sure you watch the Faulkner Focus every weekday, 11 a.m. Eastern, right here on Fox News.